Hello, my name is Randall, and we'd like to share the recording of Chalice's Community Forum concert event, which took place on April 16th, 2022. Project Music Heals Us. This was our first community forum back in the sanctuary since March of 2020. The event was also live streamed online. There was a problem with the audio in the beginning of our recording, hence this intro. We were most honored to host Project Music Heals Us, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide encouragement, education, and healing through bringing high-quality live music performances and interactive programming to marginalized communities with limited ability to access it themselves, with a focus on the elderly, disabled, rehabilitating, incarcerated, and homeless populations. Project Music Heals Us is in their 8th season and have presented over 1,000 free concerts and workshops in hospitals, nursing homes, hospice centers, retirement homes, food pantries, centers for individuals with disabilities, correctional facilities, homeless shelters, and refugee centers. The performing artists here are Dominic Celli on piano, Aubrey Oliverson on violin, and Andrew Jans on cello. Our recording picks up after founder Andrew Jans had shared a clip from the documentary The Sound of Us, highlighting the healing work of Project Music Heals Us with incarcerated. Without further ado, Project Music Heals Us.
So thank you for watching that. I realized that we didn't come to a live concert to watch more videos. But there were a couple things that tie into the program tonight. First of all, Corey, who reached out to us, is one of the few students we've actually been able to keep in touch with. A lot of the people we work with in jails and prisons, we don't know their last names. We don't know why they're there. It's not our business. But Corey actually reached out to us on Facebook, and we asked the prison, is it okay for us to be in touch? And they're like, yeah, if he's off parole, he's a free citizen. And he's been coming to our concerts in Connecticut, in New York. He's become one of our biggest fans. He showed up to a concert at the same time that the chaplain of the prison was there, and they met for the first time in plain clothes. So he's been a huge inspiration. And I wanted to share the reason that we have each of the pieces on the program tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one. The reason we're starting with Beethoven in particular is Beethoven has become kind of our musical muse for our prison programs for a number of reasons. Most people who know anything about Beethoven know that he was the deaf composer, that just as he was starting to become his own kind of force of nature in music, he started losing the most important thing that a composer should have, his ears. There are a number of other things that people don't know about Beethoven's life. He had a very difficult childhood. His father was an alcoholic. Maybe it was abuse, maybe it was just overzealous alcohol-fueled parenting. But he came up in a very, very difficult familial situation, having to sue for custody of his nephew. And so we use Beethoven as a composer muse, not only because the music is incredible, but also because he represents somebody who had so much adversity in his life and continued to try and choose hope and try and choose joy. Not always successfully. He was a pretty gruff man from all accounts. And then the other reason Beethoven is such a kind of powerful message bringer in these kinds of situations is just the compositional method he used of taking very small chunks of music and developing them endlessly. If you heard in Corey's piece, it's a pretty simple tune. We can probably remember pa yada yada da dum pa yada. It's the best way to teach composition is to not overcomplicate it at first. So we can point to these Beethoven quartets, or trios in this case, and you'll hear at the very beginning, it starts with a similar kind of very small snippet that gets endlessly developed over the course of the piece. So I've talked enough. Without further ado, this is the first movement of Beethoven's Opus 1, number 3, trio in C minor. That wasn't Beethoven's. Yeah, thank you very much. We're gonna let Aubrey go and keep her fingers warm while Dominic and I play actually two pieces for you. There's only one in the program, but we're gonna add a special one. The next piece on the program, the Britten Cello Sonata, is possibly my favorite cello sonata. It is not performed a lot, and I don't know why that is. Actually, probably it's because it's really hard. But the last movement of it is indicative of the kind of music that we try to bring into a lot of the program that we do. Early on in the organization, we had a number of conversations about, so we realized that we are a mostly classical music organization, and we realized that most of the people in the places that we're going to be working are not going to be generally classical music fans, by and large. So the question is, do you try and bring classical music 101, Eine kleine Nachtmusik, Moonlight Sonata, or do you try and bring music that will meet the people that you're playing for where they're at? And where they're at is typically much more tumultuous than, say, so Dominic and I actually brought this piece into the Danbury Correctional Facility in the federal correctional facility a number of years back, and then recorded the piece and then never released the recording for no good reason. But we wanted to bring this piece to you because it is a very bizarre piece of music, and it is incredibly engaging, both for the performance and for the audience. If you blink, you're kind of off the track. But it's indicative of this kind of trying to bring music to people that will accentuate what they're feeling and not try and just calm people down or try and say like, oh, it's going to be okay. Listen to this pretty music. So without further ado, this is the Britten Cello Sonata, 5th movement. I hope you enjoy. I hope I get through it. Now I need to talk long enough that my heartbeat comes down. Because the next piece we wanted to share, and it should have occurred to me to put it in the program. I did want to share one of the pieces that we've been using a lot this year, which is actually solely for the purpose of bringing beauty and calm to people in a very specific difficult situation. When the pandemic hit, and I'm going to put my bow down. We were all in New York. There was 1 week where the Metropolitan Opera canceled their program, and then Carnegie Hall canceled all their program, and that gave cover for all the smaller arts organizations to say, like, well, if they're not doing it, we can't do it. So within the course of about, 2 weeks, everybody who had built an entire career for, decades was just looking at blank calendar on their page, and we were no exception. And we had a number of artists who we'd already contracted for work in the prisons and in hospitals and food pantries and you name it. And we came together as an organization, executive leadership, and our board, and just didn't feel like it was the right time to save, our bank account on the backs of the artists who had just lost all their work. So we got to work trying to figure out what we can do with these artists right now. And it was through a relationship we had with a doctor named Rachel Easterwood at New York Presbyterian that she went to a heroic effort to get this virtual bedside concert program cleared through all the channels that it needs to, all the HIPAA privacy regulations accounted for, and we were able to piggyback on their telehealth iPads to start giving one-on-one virtual bedside concerts, one of our musicians with one of their patients, to try and bring some sort of visitation and community back to units where not only did they not have like friends and family visiting, but also their nurses and doctors had strict minute limits. They could only be in the room for 6 minutes at a time. So these patients were going through the worst illness of their life and also feeling weaponized against their own healthcare providers. It was, I don't need to tell you. So this program was supposed to be just one hospital for the period of the pandemic, and it's actually ended up spreading to about 40 healthcare institutions across the country now. We just gave our 10,000th one-on-one concert for patients, and it's been, we felt very lucky to be able to maintain some sort of core of what used to be totally in-person programming through these weird digital medium. But the next piece I wanted to play was one of the first pieces that was ever used in one of these concerts. It's a very famous cello piece from the Carnival of the Animals, which is a beautiful tone poem by Camille Sasson. And it's the cello solo in that piece is called The Swan, and I want to share that with you. So I'm going to dismiss Dominic for the next piece. The next piece is probably the meatiest piece on the program, even though it's only for one instrument. Bach wrote 6 what are called sonatas and partitas. Actually, I'm totally cutting into what Aubrey's going to talk about. So what I'm going to talk about is this piece, the Chaconne, is a beloved piece in the violin repertoire. It is a very, very heavy piece. And it was one of the ones where when we were going for the first time into a high security prison to give a concert, we were really talking about this issue of what do we bring in? What should we bring in? And we determined that we wanted to bring in a program about loss and about the winter solstice and about the notion that it's always darkest before the dawn. And so we brought in a program of late Beethoven, late Mendelssohn, the Opus 80 string quartet, which was written as a catharsis for the very, very untimely and sudden death of his sister, and the Bach Chaconne, this piece. And it was a risk, I think, because we didn't know any of it hadn't been a workshop. This was our first time meeting all the guys in the room. And Miki, our violinist at the time in Connecticut, got up and told the guys right before she played it, it's like, I am so nervous to play for you, and it's not the reason you think. This piece means an incredibly much to me, and it makes me incredibly nervous to play it in front of people, and I really want to give you the best of everything I have right now. And just even before she started playing, like you could feel just the support in the room. And by the time she got to the last note, they were on their feet, like before the bow came off the string. And we asked the guy who was incarcerated there, who was also helping break down all the chairs, what he thought about the program. And he said, man, I thought like classical music, it was just going to be, like nap time. And he had told us that they had the option of either going out to the yard or coming in for a classical music concert. And most of them chose to come into the concert that day because it was raining outside. And he said that it was just, you could just feel the personality of the person watching them play the instrument, that even though she had said, a total of 10 words to them, they really felt like they knew this person by the end of the piece. So with that in mind, I want to give Audrey a chance to just talk a little bit about her experience.
Thank you, Andrew. I love what you said about it also, because in working on this piece, it took so many hours to learn and to become more comfortable with it. I had a lot of time to think about what it means. And of course, it means something different to everyone, and that's what makes it great. I mean, we don't love a piece of art because it speaks to all mankind. We love it because it speaks to us. So I had a lot of time to think about, what does this mean to me? And to me, I sense there's a lot of struggle, a lot of heartache, a lot of darkness in these notes, but then there's a lot of light as well. And so what I mean by that is I feel like this piece could be looked at as a sort of roadmap. It's like it could be the journey of a soul in a way. And there are a lot of hills and valleys and a lot of things you go through. And it starts off with this incredible theme. And then there are variations on that theme. You can't really tell because Bach is so incredible at writing that it's all just, it's so complex and amazing. But then at the very end of the piece, the same theme comes back in exactly the same way, and nothing is different about it. So, but the interesting thing is it feels so different because you've been through this whole journey, and so the theme feels transformed in a way. So it's very special to me. It's also very special to me to play this piece around this time of year. I celebrate Easter. I celebrated Good Friday yesterday. So to me, it means a lot during this time. And I hope it can mean something to you as well. So here's the Bach Chaconne. Gosh, turn this off.
Yeah, imagine that in a gym with basketball courts and plastic chairs. It was, and like neon lighting. It was just such a, I mean, it's so interesting hearing it played so beautifully here and remembering it played so beautifully there. And it's, yeah. So before the last piece, which has some tie-in to our programming, but mostly we just wanted to bring you one of my favorite piano trios ever, and I wanted to play with these two, and selfish, whatever. I did want to just mention what we've been working on during the pandemic with our prison programming, because obviously the prisons were hit just about as hard as anywhere in the world. I mean, they are petri dishes for these kinds of things, and that programming was shut down and has only very, very recently begun to open up again to volunteer services and educational programs. So these programs, which started as single-day concerts and expanded, as we were talking about in the video, into week-long composition courses, during the pandemic, we were actually able to bring in our lead teaching artists to create a full year-long music composition course, which is now going to be piloted at the Bard Prison Initiative in one of the prisons that they work in. So we'll actually have college accreditation for the courses that we do now with composition. And even more exciting for me than that is in this new kind of hybrid era, trying to find out what the seed of this program is. We found the seed of the hospital programs, that it's the one-on-one communication, that even through a tablet, if it's so personal, if it's in the bed with somebody, it maintains that power of connection. But what about the prisons? Like, what about tablet learning in prison is anything? And what we've actually found is that went into a deep dive on the state of the prison communications debacle we have in this country. It's basically a duopoly where two companies own the entire communications universe, and because of that, and because of the fact that they're for-profit, very profit-driven companies, 1 in 3 families of somebody incarcerated goes into debt just by keeping in touch with them, selling digital stamps to send emails, like usurious rates for phone calls. But because it's been so bad for so long, and because there has been some movement with technology, there are nonprofits like a company called Emilio, which we're partnering with, to be able to bring the same courses that we're offering in the Northeast to all of the people they work with. 60,000 tablets across prisons across many states, no end user charges, completely free to the people involved. And on top of that, we were able to develop with a company called Flat.io a digital music composition notation software, whereas before we had to bring in, say, that quartet that you heard to come in and be the jukebox for the group. They'd write out a melody, we'd play it for them. Really incredible connection, but very, very unscalable, for lack of a better term. I mean, it's very expensive to bring in 5 teaching artists for one course. But with the introduction of these tablets and these kind of intranet offerings, we're going to be able to do these composition courses where people can watch the videos and start working on something and then send it off to their teacher, who can get back to them via the tablet, to supplement, not to replace the in-person element, but to actually be able to be in constant contact instead of just when we can afford to and when the people are available to. So we're really excited about all of the things that are being launched this year. We ourselves are a nonprofit organization, and all of these efforts, we couldn't do without you. So first of all, thank you for being here tonight and supporting all of this. If you've been moved by the program, please keep in touch, and we will be more than happy to keep in touch with you. And lastly, if you see this little half paper on one of the seats, we're actually doing public showings of the prison coursework that we're doing. The guy on the very far left, Brad Balliot, is one of the most incredibly engaging teachers you'll ever meet in your life. So every 4th Sunday of the month, we'll be doing these public showings, and they always end with a Beethoven quartet. That quartet that you saw up there is kind of our quartet in residence. We're informally calling it the Demenkoff Quartet after the director of fine and performing arts for the New York City Department of Corrections. Incredible man, should be sainted. And the last thing I'll say is that quartet is actually going to be in town next week recording some material, and we're going to do another house concert next Saturday if anyone wants to come to another concert. So without any further ado, the last piece on the program is one of the most beautiful pieces written for this genre. It's the first misnomered first piano trio by Johannes Brahms. He wrote a very early version early in his life and then went back and totally redid it. And so it's actually one of his last pieces, fully mature, fully romantic Brahms, and it's one of my absolute favorite pieces, and I hope you enjoy. I'm going to get you some music.